Today we are going to dive into the great lie called scarcity, the lie that scarcity exists. And the reason I wanted to do this episode is two reasons. Number one, scarcity plagues so many of us. It gets in the way of us really experiencing the richness and the goodness that is already here, that's already available, that's already present in our lives. It also prevents us from manifesting more. It can really get in the way of manifesting more money, more abundance. And the other reason I wanted to touch on this is because I actually taught this topic in a coaching intensive that I did recently for my community, and it got really good feedback. And lots of people said that was very helpful. Lots of people said I really needed that. So I thought if there were that many people saying that on the call, I assume there are probably listeners that feel the same way. So for those of you who were there, this might be a really good reminder. And for those of you who haven't heard this yet, I'm so excited to dive into this topic of really reprogramming scarcity. So we're going to dive into what it is, why it's a lie, and how to start reprogramming it little by little so that you can move into a more abundant mindset. And that mindset is so much more freeing. Okay, so what is scarcity? What does it actually mean? Because I think we hear about it a lot. We hear about it a lot in the coaching and manifestation and money space, but what actually is it? It is a belief in lack. That's what scarcity is. It's a belief in lack. So it's actually a belief, right? It can also be a mindset in lack, right? So scarcity mindset is this, there's never enough mindset, this thinking that there's never enough. And many of us have this in many areas of our life, right? It might be there's not enough time, there's not enough space, I didn't get enough sleep, right? It also might be there's not enough money, there's not enough overflow, there's not enough debt payout, right? Whatever it is, it's a not enough mindset, right? So it's the belief that resources like money, opportunities, success, clients, and time are limited and that we must compete for them. And that's why it's a lie, right? Because again, it's just a belief that these resources are limited when really they aren't. And how we think about them really matters. But like I said, so many of us are plagued by scarcity. We literally wake up in the morning and our first thought is, I didn't get enough sleep. Right? And then the next thought is there's so much to do today. I don't have enough time. And then we look at our bank account and say there's not enough money. And then we look at our business and say there's not enough clients. And then we look at our social media and we say we don't have enough followers, right? So there's this not enough that just pervades us. And then right before bed, right before we hit our bed on the pillow, we say, oh my gosh, I didn't get enough done today. So I want you to check in and notice if you have some of these thoughts that run through you throughout the day, and also notice which ones you have. The two that I see most often are there's not enough money, and that's probably because I'm a money coach and that's just what I support people with. The other one is there's not enough time, and really seeing people in time scarcity. And what's really amazing about the work that I do and that I teach is that you can bend time. You can bend money. Like you can actually create money and you can create time with your thinking. But here's the thing. If you are always thinking there's not enough time, there's not enough hours, there's not enough money, you will not bend time or money in your favor. You will actually shrink it. Thoughts become things. So if you've heard this in manifestation, it's like thoughts become things. How is this so? How is it so that we can actually expand time or we can contract time based upon what we're thinking? How is it so that we can create money with our mind? We can literally create more abundance with our thinking. How does this play out, right? That's what I used to ask because I would hear this whole thoughts become things and your thoughts create your reality. And I didn't quite understand how. Like I was always intrigued by it, but I was like, how exactly is that? And I want to dive into how this actually works, how manifestation works, and why a scarcity mindset actually works against us in terms of manifesting. Why, when we think there's not enough time, do we actually feel like we have less time? Why is it that when we're always thinking, I don't have enough money, we don't experience wealth, we don't create wealth? Well, there's two main reasons. Number one, once I started understanding the reticular activating system, how our brain works, that helped me understand how a scarcity mindset really limits us, and it really limits our ability to manifest. Now, you might have heard of this as RAS or RAS, reticular activating system. It is the part of the brain. So what it is essentially is a network of neurons in the brainstem that acts as a filter for information. It determines what gets your attention by prioritizing what's important based on your thoughts, your beliefs, and your focus. So if you've heard that saying, what you focus on grows, looking into RAS and the reticular activating system is like the scientific approach of how that all plays out, why it's true that what you focus on grows. Because when you're always thinking it's not enough, that is what you see evidence of. So think of it like this. The reticular activating system is the part of the brain that filters out information, right? And it tells you what to focus on. So if you're thinking something like it's never enough, you put that lens on. You literally put a filter of it's not enough into your brain, right? Whatever thought we're thinking, we're putting that filter into our brain. Or if you think of it like sunglasses, right? You're putting that filter over your eyes. And that is what, when you look at the world, that is what you will find evidence of. That is what you will see, right? So it's like a filter. So if you're thinking it's not enough, that is what you would feel. That is what you would experience. That is what you're going to see evidence of. And that's what you're going to act on. And that's what you're going to end up creating, right? So it really matters what thoughts you're focused on, what thoughts you give attention to. It's totally okay if these thoughts arise because maybe they're habitual. Maybe you've had the pattern of thinking there's not enough time and there's not enough money and there's not enough this and I didn't get enough done for a long time. It's totally okay if those thoughts arise, but when you give attention to them, that's what matters. When you believe that they are true, that's what matters, because what we focus on grows, right? And I also began understanding manifestation and how this, thoughts become things actually exists. And that's because whenever I learned the self-coaching model, it's the CTFAR model, circumstances, thoughts, feelings, actions, and results. Also, this is also taught in cognitive behavioral therapy. It teaches us how our thinking drives us, right? So it's not our circumstances. Whenever I said the CTFAR model, it's not our circumstances that create our reality. If that were true, someone like Oprah would be screwed because she came into very challenging circumstances in her life. But how is it that she didn't let those circumstances dictate what she was able to create? Because she took agency over her life. The one place we have agency is in our thinking, our feeling, and our behaviors, right? So it's not our circumstances. It's not the amount of debt we have. It's not the amount of money that you have in your account now. It's not the number of clients that dictate what you're able to manifest and create. It's how you think about those circumstances and how you think about what is possible for you moving forward. So if your thought about your circumstances is always, it's not enough, it's not enough, it's not enough, well, thoughts create our feelings. So the thought, it's not enough, makes you feel scarce. It makes you feel anxious. It makes you feel fearful. And when you feel scarce, fearful, anxious, you're probably over-consuming, you're probably overthinking, you're probably not taking a lot of creative action from that place. It keeps us really stuck, right? Because our feelings like scarcity, fear, and anxiety drive what we do or don't do, right? In terms of the model. And so if you're not doing a lot and you are overwhelmed and you are just spinning out, not in creativity, not taking action, you are not going to create results and manifestations in your life, right? So it's not the circumstances, because it's the thoughts that you have about them. Thoughts create our feelings. Feelings drive our actions or inactions, and that is what creates the manifestations that we have in our lives, right? So again, it all comes back to how we're thinking. That is at the root of it. So understanding the reticular activating system and how our brain filters out information based upon how we're thinking, and it actually filters out what we're able to actually see in the world, blended with the knowing that our thoughts create our feelings, feelings drive our actions, and actions create our results. It's like, no wonder thoughts become things. No wonder when we're in a scarcity mindset, we don't create more, right? You can literally see how that plays out. So with that, if you want to create more abundance or more money or more clients or more time or whatever it is that you want to manifest in your life, it's going to make a difference in terms of how you think about it. And reprogramming your brain to think in more abundant ways will be so much more empowering, because when you start thinking in that way, you will start seeing that in your life. You will also start creating evidence of that in your life, and you will start manifesting according to that thought in your life. And here's the truth. We don't need to think in scarcity, because scarcity is a lie. It's actually a human-created feeling, a human-created mindset. And how do we know this? Because scarcity actually does not exist in nature, funny enough, right? If you think about the natural world, there is no scarcity. There is no greed. It is actually a human-created condition. It's human-created programming. It actually doesn't exist. Scarcity isn't real. It is truly a mindset. And I love what Paul Zader says, which is, he has this quote that says, "There is a natural law of abundance which pervades the universe, but it will not flow through a doorway of a belief in lack and limitation." So when you start thinking in more abundant ways, you will find that you connect with that natural law of the universe, right? It's like I said, lack is not found in nature. Right? If you think of animals, they're not walking around in scarcity thinking, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough this, I don't have enough friends, I don't have enough food. No, even if, let's say they're going through something where there is a drought, right? And they do not have water. They don't go into scarcity. They don't go into there's not enough, there's not enough, there's not enough. They actually go into survival. It's a completely different thing. They go into action taking. They go into problem solving, but they are not plagued by scarcity, right? So what's really great is, as humans, human conditioning created this, and human conditioning can undo this. We can deprogram our scarcity mindsets, and we can program ourselves for more abundance, but it's just going to take some practice. And lucky enough, this is work that I have absolutely done myself, and I still practice to this day. Every single morning, I program myself for abundance, and I do the inner work that helps release any scarce beliefs that I have. And it's just a practice that I utilize often, and it has made all the difference in my life. Not only has it been way easier to manifest, not only have I made way more money since starting to do this work around deprogramming scarcity and reprogramming abundance into my brain, but also I would say the biggest benefit is I experience more freedom. I experience more lightness, more joy. There's more of a ability to relax and take a deep breath. I'm not driven by fear so much. So it makes my life more enjoyable. And I think that's the best part of it, right? The things that you manifest as an effect of it are just the cherry on top. Making more money or manifesting, things in your business, that's the cherry on top. It's really the energetic state of being in abundance that is the real gift you are giving to yourself. And I just want to mention this because I think a lot of people think, I can't think in abundance. I don't have a lot of money. But that's the lie. because abundance is not created, right? The energetic state of abundance is not created by your circumstances. It is not created by the things that you currently have or don't have in your life. Because if that were the case, like every massively wealthy person would be in a state of abundance, and they are not, right? A lot of people who have all the things, everything, right? Fame, they have money, they have the mansions, they literally have everything you could ever want material-wise, right? And they may even have the family and the friends. But if they are still wired into scarcity and they have not done this inner work to generate the emotion of abundance, they will be in lack while having all of those things. And I have literally seen it. I have had clients who came and worked with me and said, it's the craziest thing. I am making way more money than I've ever made in my life. And I thought I would feel so different. I thought I would feel abundant. And yet I'm just terrified of losing it. I'm in fear all the time. I'm always worried about it. I'm always thinking about my overhead and scared that I won't make it and this and that, right? So it's not our circumstances that dictate whether we feel abundant or scarce. And so that's good news, right? Because it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you are $100,000 in debt, $1 million in debt. It doesn't matter if you have $1 million or $1 billion. None of that is going to create your mindset or your emotional state, right? And so the way to generate the emotional state of abundance is you have to think in a way that generates that, because you cannot rely on your circumstances. And here's the good news. Like, if you are someone who's like, I don't love where my circumstances are. I don't love being in debt. I don't love having 0 clients. I don't love whatever it is, wherever you're at in your business, or maybe you're not making the profit that you want to be making. And you're like, this is unwanted. I do want to manifest more. And I have this desire to manifest more. That's totally okay. But don't wait on manifesting that, thinking that once I get there, I will feel abundant. Because the truth is, you have to reverse engineer the process. You have to create the abundance now and generate the feeling and the mindset of abundance now. Number 1, it's going to help you manifest more. And number 2, it's actually going to help you be in that abundant mindset when you get there. Right? Because that thing won't give you an abundant mindset in and of itself. So you might as well do this work now. And that was something that I remember I thought of whenever I was in the red in my business back whenever I started doing this work. I had debt. I had the worst credit score ever. But I was like, you know what? I'd rather be doing this work now than be having manifested $1 million and still be in scarcity, wondering why I can't feel abundant, right? So here's the good news. No matter where you are, like, amazing news that you're figuring this out now, because you might as well get into the energy of abundance. It is available to you now. And that is what we're going to talk about, are different ways that you can program your brain and start practicing ways of stepping into an abundance mindset and stepping slowly out of a scarcity mindset. And when I say slowly, I mean this probably won't be an overnight shift, right? It could be, but most of the time with the people that I work with, it is actually the repetition that they put in. It is the daily practice. It is the intention of doing it and just showing up consistently that helps them reprogram. It's usually not a let me practice gratitude one time and I'm suddenly in an abundant state of being for the rest of my life. Like I said, it's still something that I practice. So let me tell you what the practices are. This is kind of like a gym, if you think about it, and you're building strength in the area of abundance. So let's hit the gym at least 10 minutes a day, and you can pick one of these things to practice for just 10 minutes a day. And I will tell you what, after 1 year, you will be in a completely different place. Okay, so the first one that I mentioned is gratitude. That is actually one of the most powerful practices of stepping into abundance and out of scarcity. Why? Because gratitude is the opposite of scarcity. If you could think of an emotion that is the exact opposite, it is going to be gratitude. Because what gratitude is focusing on what you have and being grateful for what's already there, feeling grateful for what you already have. So you are in a place of gratitude. You are in a place of sufficiency. You are in a place of enoughness when you are practicing gratitude. It is literally taking your brain and focusing on what you already have and being grateful for it. And Oprah actually says that is her manifestation practice. Like someone asked her in an interview once, what is your manifestation practice? And she said, I've done the visualization, I've done the vision boards and all of that, but the consistent practice for me is gratitude, because when I am in a state of gratitude, I manifest more, right? And that's because she's in an abundant mindset, and look at what she's created from that space. Amazing. So you can practice gratitude every single day. Just think of 3 things you're grateful for every morning, or think of 3 things that you're grateful for from your day. And another fun practice is thinking of 3 different things every day, right? So you're not just writing down, I'm grateful for my partner, I'm grateful for my house, I'm grateful for my dog. One of my practices was I have to think of something that's different every single day. And it really takes my brain and that reticular activating system and has it searching out for new things to be grateful for, and it really builds abundance. And then what you focus on grows. So once you see how much you already have, more can be given, right? Okay. Another one is focusing on what's going well. I think this is really important as entrepreneurs because we can naturally be kind of like problem solvers. And that problem solver part of our brain, or that high achiever part of our brain, oftentimes is looking for problems to solve, right? Which we're looking at what's not going well, where the gaps are, and what we still have to go, what we still need in order to achieve. But I will tell you what, it is going to go so much better if you can balance that high achiever brain out with also bringing your brain into what is working, what's going well. And I'll tell you what, in your business, if you just start amplifying what's already going well and put more energy into that, your business is going to grow so much faster than if you only think about problem solving. So I highly encourage you to make this kind of a weekly practice in your business where you think about what is going well, what's already working, and think about adding fuel to that, putting more energy, putting more time into what's already going well. You can build so much faster from that place. Another one is like focusing on your gifts and amplifying those. It's very similar, but I do think this is one of the best ways to manifest money, is to focus on what you're gifted at. What are you naturally good at? What doesn't take you a lot of energy? What doesn't take you a lot of effort? What's kind of like your zone of genius, as Gay Hendricks would say from the book, The Big Leap. He talks about this, right? That when you focus on your zone of genius, when you focus on your gifts, that is how you can grow the fastest and the most easily, right? This is how you can make money with more ease, is by focusing in on what am I gifted at and how can I tap into that, right? So it's a similar practice to what's going well. It's also what am I gifted at? What am I really good at that's just natural for me, that's not natural for everyone else? That's your moneymaker right there. That is like the highest value right there. That is what makes you super, super valuable. So another practice is to just start noticing your brain, right? Start noticing when you're in not enough thinking, catch it, and try to shift it, right? Practice thinking on purpose. And for those of you who are deeply in scarcity, fear, and worry, specifically around money, where you feel like, God, I'm really plagued by this. Like, I really spend a lot of time and not enough. I'm in a lot of fear of not having enough money. What I would actually recommend is not taking yourself to the emotion of abundance quite yet, because I think it's going to be too far of a stretch for you. What I would focus on as your first step is getting into the emotion of sufficiency, because that moves you on the spectrum much closer to abundance, right? But I think the first step is getting into sufficiency. Now, so if you think of scarcity is not enough. Sufficiency is enough. Abundance is more than enough, right? So these are the 3 different mindsets that we can really work with. So again, scarcity is the mindset of not enough. Sufficiency is there's enough. Abundance is there's more than enough. So if you are in there's not enough a lot, let's just start by moving into the mindset of enough. We don't have to stretch ourselves and try to believe that there's way more than enough, especially if you're looking at your account and you're like, my brain can't even I can't even be delusional and go there and pretend that there's more than enough. What I want you to start with is looking for how there's enough. So some of the thoughts that I began to practice to create sufficiency were, there's enough today. There's enough money today. I can get by today. I have enough food for today. I have enough money for today. I have enough water for today. I have home covering my head for today, right? Another one is things always work themselves out. Everything always works themselves out. And that's when I was in a lot of fear, right? I would just believe, okay, I don't know how this is going to, but things always work themselves out. And that kind of brought me into a place of sufficiency, of enough. Another one is there's enough time, right? So there's enough time for what I need. There's enough time to do enough, right? I can just do enough. Another one that helped me kind of move into sufficiency is there are opportunities out there. There's enough opportunities. I can get by. I am okay. And I wanted to move from major scarcity of this fear of running out of money and this fear of not having enough into there is enough for today. It at least brought me into a present state of okayness. And I think that's a really good place to start. And I think that sometimes when people are manifesting, we try to go too far too soon and our brain can't accept it. And I was telling this story on my live call, how whenever I started doing this work around money, I didn't realize I was doing this, but I was trying to believe these mantras that felt way too out of reach. Because again, I had all this student loan debt. I had horrible credit. I was not managing my money well. I was living paycheck to paycheck. My checking account would often bounce, right? That was the place that I was in. And so going to thoughts like, there's more than enough, there's overflow, money is everywhere, and thoughts that generate the feeling of abundance felt like a bunch of BS. My brain just rejected it. I couldn't even feel the real emotion of that. I couldn't get myself into that thought, right? I could say it, but I didn't believe it at all, which is why it wasn't working, right? I remember I would drive around whenever I had my makeup business, and I'd be driving all around LA for makeup jobs. And I would listen to the CD. It was Louise Hay's Mantras for Abundance, I think. And it was just a CD that repeated a bunch of mantras. And I would say them over and over, but it didn't feel like they landed. And again, it's because they were just way too much of a stretch for my brain. So when I realized that, I started doing this work and really understanding thought work on a deeper level and got into coaching, that's when I realized, oh my gosh, I need some bridge thoughts. I need some stepping stones. I can't practice mantras that my brain rejects or doesn't even believe or don't land at all. So that's why I started with sufficiency. So that's what I would recommend to you, or if you're just in a deep place of scarcity, to process any fears, but get yourself into the place of how do you have enough today? How are you going to be okay today? Get yourself into sufficiency, okayness, presence. And then from there, you will notice that becomes more of your natural state of being. And from that place, that's when you can move up a notch and start practicing thoughts that generate more than enough, that generate the emotion of abundance, and you can start taking on an abundance mindset. And I started doing that. So let me give you some of the thoughts that I really like to practice around abundance. And one is there's more than enough. Money is always flowing to me in expected and unexpected ways all of the time. Every dollar I spend comes back to me multiplied. I'm always supported financially, no matter what. I am worthy of wealth simply because I exist. My income grows as I grow. I am open to receiving more than I ever imagined. I trust that money always finds its way to me. Wealthy is just who I am. right? And these are just a couple, but there's a lot of thoughts that can generate the emotion of abundance and the emotion of overflow, right? That's kind of what abundance is, more than enough. So after you've gotten yourself to a place of sufficiency, then move it up a notch and start practicing thoughts that create the feeling of overflow and see how there's overflow in your life. So start looking for evidence of where there's overflow in your life so you can move yourself into a state of abundance and a mindset of abundance. Now, that's the thought work part, and it's so effective when you do it in the right way. But mantras don't work when you stretch yourself too far too soon. So let yourself inch your way towards abundance, all right? That would be my biggest suggestion. Now, the last thing I want to recommend as a practice to practice reprogramming your consciousness for abundance is to celebrate. Learn to celebrate yourself. Especially, this is going to be helpful if you're someone who doesn't take credit for things, or you tend to reject compliments, or you reject that you created it, or you think that it's a fluke. If that is so, you need to learn how to celebrate yourself. And I'll tell you what, we do this inside of the money manifestation movement. As a community, every single Friday, I send out a post and I'm like, hey, everyone, what are we celebrating this week? And I give them prompts for it. And the people who celebrate the most often end up creating the most. They end up manifesting more. It's because when you are in that feeling of celebration, right? It's like it magnetizes more things to celebrate to you. And I've just seen how this has happened. I have seen how when people step into that practice of celebration, which can feel totally vulnerable, they create amazing shifts in their life and they start manifesting more. And you start taking credit for the fact that you're the creator, that you co-created this, that you had a piece of this. It wasn't just a fluke. It wasn't just something that happened to you. And again, if you think about the reticular activating system, if you start focusing in on, hey, what went right? What do I want to celebrate from this week? You're going to see more things to celebrate. You're going to have more of a celebratory experience of life. So that's a huge practice around stepping into abundance. And I have to say, I'm so excited for you to start doing this work because it has such a ripple effect on your life. It is some of the most important work you can do because it's going to change your whole life experience. It's going to change how you see the world, right? So I can't wait for you to make this a practice. Again, think about it as stepping into the abundance mindset gym for 5 to 10 minutes a day. It doesn't take a lot. It just takes a little bit of practice, and that little bit of practice can change everything. So I would recommend picking one thing to start practicing, whether that is just starting a gratitude practice, or whether that is starting to just weekly think about what's going well in your business and amplifying that. Or maybe it's practicing intentional thinking, getting yourself into sufficiency first, right? Maybe you do that every day. Or maybe it's a practice of celebration. Don't try to take on all of these. Pick one of them because one of them will be super effective. I gave you a variety, but pick the one that lands and actually practice it. It will make all the difference. So again, pick one. Don't be a perfectionist because then you're going to be super overwhelmed and not do any of them. Pick one and really go all in on it. And then you come to me on Instagram, JamieBerman_, and you tell me what difference it's made for you. Or you could also leave a review and tell me about how it has impacted you or your life. And that would be such a blessing to me. I would absolutely love to see that in a review because guess what happens? When you review the podcast, it gets out to more people. So spread the love, spread the abundance. And if you want to be in generosity for a moment, I would so appreciate that. And I'd love to hear what you loved about this episode and what you're going to practice. And if you have practiced anything, how it's impacted your life. All right, my love, happy manifesting, and I will see you next week.